Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Zero Hour Health and Zedix COVID at 1 year, looking back and looking forward. Today, I'm joined by my friend Patrick Sterling from Texas Roadhouse. I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are and how we came to be here today. We're a 30-year-old company. We provide clinical guidance and support to businesses. Before COVID, you often called us about flu, noro, and Hep A. In February of 2020, we launched Zedic to provide similar services to smaller businesses. Since the start of COVID, we've been involved in employee wellness checks and provide live clinical review of your employees' daily wellness checks. And we're rolling out vaccine tracking currently. So where are we now? Where we are now is that many of you are aware that we're having some vaccine rollout issues, that there's difficulty in getting appointments, there's difficulty in finding sites near workplaces, there's difficulty in understanding which states are allowing vaccinations of which groups of individuals or employees. And that seems to be starting to improve, but it continues to be a day-to-day challenge. The other things that we're seeing right now are changes to the work exclusions based on vaccination. The CDC's newest guidance says that an employee can be permitted to continue to work if they've had close contact with someone with COVID, if it's more than 14 days after their second or final shot. So their second shot with Moderna or Pfizer, their single shot with Johnson & Johnson. So an employee may continue to work if they've been exposed from 14 days after vaccination until 90 days. That's going to need some careful monitoring, and one of the reasons that vaccine tracking is going to be very important. Something very important to note is that over the last 2 weeks, we are seeing some increased sickness. We saw a really nice downturn from mid-February through the end of February. The surges that we experienced after the holidays and in January were really at incredibly critically high levels, and they dropped drastically. But in the last 2 weeks, we are seeing an uptick of COVID cases, of COVID-like illness, and of norovirus. Last but not least, as many of you know, because many of our clients spoke with us over the last 24 hours, Texas and now Mississippi have lifted their mask mandates and some other precautions. And how to deal with that, how to protect your employees when your guests, your customers, your clients in retail businesses are not masked or may not want to be masked is really creating some very huge new challenges, and certainly reinforces that no 2 days in COVID are alike. Looking back, we've spent some time over the last 2 weeks talking to many of our clients about what were the challenges you faced and what were your key operational issues. Clearly, closures were your biggest key operational issue. It is, when your business is closed, what are the kinds of things that impact employees, impact your customers, impact knowing about people's health status when they're not actively coming to work every day. Certainly the loss of income was tremendous, and the financial impact across business and across the restaurant and food service industry has been enormous. The next biggest challenge, and certainly the biggest challenge that continues, are sick employees and employees working sick. Both of those are issues that we've talked about many, many times over the years, but certainly became critical in the last 12 months. And it really is hard to believe it's been 12 months. And then last but not least, misinformation. Employees get information from many, many sources. 27% make their healthcare decisions from information they get from social media. And the plethora of misinformation and correcting it continues to be a full-time job for many of us.
Thanks so much, Roslyn. And now we'll transition to Patrick. Patrick, we're really curious to hear your point of view on the biggest lessons that you all learned during the last year, and also what you're thinking about moving forward.
The uncertainty, the inconsistent guidance from institutions and authorities certainly was a challenge. As you said, tracking it was nearly impossible. So those are some of the big challenges looking back. What we've seen is that if you have a culture where you love your people and your communities, it is amazing how they'll have your back during these hard times. And we certainly saw that with our employees and with our guests that came in and did the curbside to go and did all that. But, I think having that people first culture and really not just talking it, but living it from the top down is just so critical. And that really showed itself during this past year. Your folks that know the best ideas coming from the folks that are facing your guests every day. And you got to empower and support them. You got to be willing to take some risks. So it's certainly something that we saw, and there were some amazing ideas that really, really helped for us. And the other thing is just plan. I mean, you need to have a plan B, if not even a plan C. And so just really memorializing your learnings on this stuff and continuing to practice in events in the future. Um, and really, again, looking back, the importance of strong vendor partnerships. I think having this long-term partnership with Zero Hour Health was critical. I know some people waited until it was too late. It was hard to get in the game, and I can't imagine having gone through this without that partnership. So, and even some of our other partners and just how they rallied around. It's very similar to your people, your communities, your vendor partnerships really come to play in these kind of times. Guest and health departments, they notice and appreciate companies that do it right with safety and sanitation. And pretty sure that guests will have a heightened awareness and sensitivity to health and sanitation practices going forward with this. So we got to make sure we're, leading on that, doing the right thing there. It's an interesting, I read a survey the other day that 50% of workers admit that they sometimes work sick, while 33% say they always go to work sick. And so having a real good employee sick call process will be critical. So Roslyn mentioned earlier about the noro outbreak. So there's other illnesses out there besides COVID. And having a real good sick call process is critical. Last thing you want to do now is to have, a restaurant shut down from a noro or a Hep A situation because you didn't have an early warning system and didn't have the right culture for reporting employee illnesses.
So we have some questions that were submitted in advance, and we have plenty of time for live questions as well. Do you think that theatrical cleaning is here to stay? And is there something to be said for making that a part of our everyday routine moving forward, even beyond the pandemic?
There's some great benefits from the extra cleaning that we're doing. It may be theatrical, but there's also, think about the other illnesses that it may be preventing.
Yeah.
So, maybe it was theatrical for COVID and the way that COVID spreads, but it's certainly not theatrical for a lot of other pathogens that are out there.
I will tell you that our clients who had really good neurosanitizing protocols, those became COVID sanitizing protocols. The only difference really between them was whether or not you had needed to, or that you didn't need to throw away prepped food in a COVID sanitizing, or that you didn't need to throw away everything that was open in a retail establishment necessarily.